Hello and welcome. This is The Beautiful Game. My name is Mike Mesikeno, and yeah, it's the big weekend. There's a lot, and there's a number of reasons why this weekend is big, of course. Liverpool, like we previewed, over 20-30 minutes now. Manchester City up against Liverpool, and then, of course, the World Cup players. But just before we get into that, Hafiz Ogunbanjo is in the house with me. Yeah. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, thank you so much.
Great to have you, great to have you. Okay, so just before we get into Man City versus Liverpool, let's start in the African continent with the World Cup playoff squad list, which Coach Eric Shell just released. Nigeria has released a World Cup playoff squad list, and let's take a look at it. As expected, Nwabali Stanley is there, Obaso JMS, and the return of Maduka Okoye, who starts in goal against Gabon.
Well, for me, I think Eric Shell has, voiced out publicly about his support for Stanley Nwabali, despite his errors. I mean, that's notably against Lesotho, that game where he dropped the ball and all of that. But I think, just like I said, Eric Shell has sounded support for him. I think he's still going to be the one in goal. But Okoye Maduka is a good one for a test for him, because ever since he also got back for Udinese, he's been impressive for them, and the coach of Udinese also stands behind him.
Right, and people will say that you don't change the dynamics of a team if they are winning, at least despite his mistakes. Eric Shell has not lost a qualifier or any match at all at that. So probably we might still see Stanley Nwabali starting.
Yeah, but the issue is that with that is that whenever we are calling for selections and all of that, we call on merits, based on your performance. And I can't maybe totally fault him, because when it comes to club football, Chippa United's goalkeeper Nwabali, Chippa United are in the best form in the South African League. They are
terrible, relegation contenders.
They are even last. They are bottom of the table. While Udinese, they found themselves mid-table in the Serie A, and Maduka Okoye, who has also been impressive, even in less games. I know clean sheet is not a metric for a goalkeeper, but the save percentage, Maduka Okoye has more. So, if purely by merit, I think it should be Maduka Okoye starting. But then,
all right, let's go. Let's get our defenders and over. We have Ekong, William Troost-Ekong. We have Calvin Bassey, Bright Osai, Samuel Onyemaechi, Bruno. Now, Shemilogo Ajayi is expected. Of course, he will be missing the first match. If we do qualify, if the Super Eagles do qualify, then they're going to play the next one. Chidozie Awazim, Sanusi Zaidu, and of course Fredericks, who a number of people have doffed their hat for, considering his most recent performances for the national team. Defenders, what do you think about
not
this?
At all, but I think maybe I wouldn't say they didn't have enough time to maybe look for more names, because I'm sure a lot of Nigerians won't want to see a certain Troost-Ekong, even though he's the captain. They want to see him.
You can't be looking for new names, though. You have to carry the team that as it were. So that's why
you have to carry the team that's going to negotiate for you. But when you're having players that selecting into the national team, it's brings up something in Nigerians that we should be looking for more players. But then I think the inclusion of Calvin Bassey and Benjamin Fredericks, I think, is a good one.
All right, now people have complained about our midfield. Now this is where we lack quite a lot of numbers. We don't have so many bodies in the midfield. Could Eric Shell have done a little bit more when it comes to invitation of players? Maybe look at the local league. We've always spoken about that. Looking at the local league, yes, we know Al Hassan Yusuf, what he did in the last AFCON, a great player. That was, for me, that was one of the discoveries of the tournament for us. Umwedi Karafe, know what he can do. Frank Onyeka, Wilfred Ndidi, not at his peak. We're not seeing that same Wilfred that we saw 4 or 5 years back. I mean, that time when you had a comparison with Declan Rice and all of that, and of course Alexander Iwobi. Could we do more when it comes to midfielders?
Of course we can. I think, and it depends on where the creativity is coming from. But I think the way, if you look at the way Super Eagles have a play, I think the creativity comes more from the wings this time around, and where we have the likes of Lookman, Ademola, and all of that. We're going to talk about them later. But Iwobi Alexander is, he's an integral part of Super Eagles, whether we like it or not. He's been doing so well, even at club level. And also, good news is that Rafael Onyedika is also back. After a timeout, he came back with his Club Brugge, and now he's also selected. And maybe Frank, I think it's just the regular names, but then
regular names. Let's move to the forwards.
Other players.
This is where we're heavy, forward heavy, and all of that. There is no. I think there's nothing to talk so much about.
Except for the debut. The inclusion of for the young man, the Russian-based Olakunle Olusegun, and Well, and also for Chidera Ejuke, who a lot of Nigerians have also been calling for him too. His performances for Sevilla have been absolutely fantastic, and his club mate to Akko Adams also back. I think a good squad. The regular faces to negotiate the game against Gabon.
All right, we'll take a very short time out now. Don't go anywhere. When we get back, we'll get straight into the game, talking about Nigeria and Gabon, and talk about how we think the Super Eagles are going to navigate that particular fixture. All right, welcome back to the beautiful game. We're talking Nigeria and Gabon. That's talking about the World Cup qualification playoffs. But let's get to some little bit of controversy. Nigeria and South Africa, you know, we're brothers. We're never out of the news when it comes to Nigeria and South Africa. Now, in a letter dated November 3rd, 2025 from FIFA appointed Tom Abongile, assisted by Zakele Siwela and Akona Makalima, who will oversee video assistant referee duties. One thing about all of them, they are South African. And it has caused some uproar on social media. Nigerians don't like the idea that for the match against Gabon, we have South African refs who will oversee it.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, based off what the Honorable Minister himself, that's talking about Gayton Mackenzie, when he mentioned that he doesn't want Nigeria to qualify. Even though at that particular point in time, it could be looked at, you know, different ways, because both of you are going for the same, you know, in the same group. So yes, for the fact that I qualified, that means you're not qualified, but it seemed to have some undertone. And that undertone is what Nigerians are riding on now and saying that for that particular reason, there could be some influence on the referees. Now it's back and forth. We're hearing that CAF has stepped down the referees. CAF might not step down the referees. You know, it's just going back and forth. But CAF, do you think, first of all, that having South African referees for that particular game would indicate conflict of interest?
Absolutely. I'm not one, you know, to be looking into all those kind of maybe conspiracy theories and all of that.
Yeah.
And what Gayton Mackenzie said even sounded like a harmless statement, because he's like, he gave respect to Nigeria and said they're a football powerhouse, but, you know, being in the same group and all of that, he wants South Africa, you know, because he's South African, he wants South Africa, you know, to take all the glory of African football when it comes to the World Cup and all of that. Yes, it sounded like a harmless statement, but something like this will actually, you know, play back to what he said, you know, appointing a South African referee. Again, what will also be like, let me say, a step down on South Africans is that the CAF president, Patrice Motsepe, is South African. Okay. And, you know, for them to be, you know, working and appoint South African refs, trust me, uproar will come from Nigerians.
South Africa has qualified. Do you think that if there was going to be any sort of undertone of mischief, South Africa would actually not want Nigeria to qualify? because I'm thinking about it. Wouldn't we think about bringing our best?
I don't think they have other business with someone that's, you know, trying to play the playoffs. Yeah.
Okay, so based on all of this now, CAF is said to be reconsidering and taking away that referee who is South African. You think that it's valid? You think it's something that they should go ahead to do?
But then, well, because of the level of the uproar and all of that, I think it's just something being reactionary. It's just the level of uproar coming from Nigerians. And now, where CAF will have that, let me say, that advantage is if Nigeria goes on with that game without a South African referee, maybe if all these referees have, you know, have been replaced, and they end up still losing that game against Gabon, then, you know, CAF will come out and say, hey, we did what you asked us to do.
All right, let's take a look at the squad. They're still talking about that particular game. This is what we might expect. This was our last game against Benin. This was the starting lineup. And normally I would expect that this starting lineup would not change, because this is the best Nigeria has played in a very, very long time.
But it will change. It will change because of the suspension of
Shemiloro Ajayi. Of course, he picked that yellow card here, and so that was the second yellow card, and so he's going to be out of this particular fixture.
So we should be seeing the return of Benjamin Fredericks to the centre-back position, pairing with Calvin Bassey, Zedu Sanusi, or maybe Bruno Yemechi, and we'll be seeing a certain Bright Osai Simon
definitely at this particular point in time. It will be indeed Chukwueze and Simon. We don't have a problem with that.
Maybe Ejuke will start now, because for me personally now, I think I prefer Chidera Ejuke, because he's very creative. He's one of the best dribblers even in European football. I think he should be there, but just like you say, you don't change a winning formula. So if Simon did well in that game, so if Simon and Chukwueze can replicate that form in that game against Benin Republic, I think we are good to go.
All right, Adams, of course, and Akko Adams and Osimhen. There's been that talk of Tolu Arokodare, but it doesn't seem like he might work with Osimhen. Maybe it's just one match. But Akko Adams, Victor Osimhen, are we good to go?
I think it should stay that way, because Tolu Arokodare and Victor Osimhen, they are goal-getters. Adams also is a goal-getter, but he can do well playing behind a certain Victor Osimhen. So I think Akko Adams and Victor Osimhen, they are good.
All right, if you just start back there so that we can just take a look at the Gabon squad. Let's start getting ready to take a look at the Gabon squad there.
Yeah.
All right, don't worry. Just hold it there.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a look at the Gabonese squad.
Yeah.
And Pierre. Yeah, just tap it back there. But now there's been that talk now. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He's not necessarily what you'd expect when it comes to being the best player. People are talking about him. But then there are other players in that squad that will definitely give us issues. Yeah, let's talk about that a bit. That's talking about Aubameyang and the Gabon squad. Don't worry. Just go ahead.
Well, I think for me, Aubameyang he is their top man, of course. Most definitely. I think he got about was it 3 goals or 4 goals, and even still got sent off, in their last game. But then. I mean, no, it wasn't in the last game. It was a game where they still had 1 more game to go. He got suspended. But now he's back. But they also have the likes of Denis Bouanga, who is doing well in the MLS. I think second only to Lionel Messi in the scorers standings. And also he was a top scorer in the World Cup qualifiers. They've shown that they can score goals. They've also shown that they can concede. That's talking about the Gabonese. And looking at that squad, Bouanga, fantastic winger. I mean, Mario Lemina, this is a man of interest as well.
Let's take a look at,
Osimhen.
Let's take a look at the Gabonese squad, like we just mentioned now. And we spoke about how they will be a problem. It's not something that's just going to be easy. Looking at the qualification phases, these guys made, 23 points?
About 25 points.
I mean, these guys were just very, very good.
Yeah.
Higher than basically even in our whole group, everything that we had in our group. Yeah. They scored goals for fun. I mean, in the last game it was 4-3, where Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang had all the goals and then picked up that card and all over. Yeah. But looking at this team, this team can hurt Nigeria.
Of course they can, and just like you said, they've shown that they can score goals and they have a good cohesion about them. But the issue is that they've also shown that they can concede. Because they even conceded more than the Super Eagles. The Super Eagles conceded 8 goals, while they let in 9 goals, even though they scored 22. So I think if the Super Eagles can neutralize the attacking options, I think it will be good to go. But then, if looking at the other side, that's talking about Super Eagles as well. They've shown that creativity is lacking, and they only rely on the brilliance of one man, who the Gabonese defenders might not find so difficult to mark out.
Plays with this guy, yeah. They play, they understand each other. We saw them with Galatasaray in the Champions League over the weekend. Lemina, of course, knows Victor Osimhen. But then you think that our defense can stand up against Bouanga, Lemina, and of course Aubameyang.
Yeah, of course that's a big question and a big test, to ask for going into that game. I think Bouanga, like I said, very rapid, so he's up against our fullbacks, to do the job and marking him out. And also Didier Ndong, who used to play in the Premier League, is also want to watch out for a very good defensive midfielder. And Lemina, I mean, just like you said, plays with Victor Osimhen right there in Turkey. So it's going to be a big test. But then, if they can replicate that performance up against the Benin Republic, I think they should be good to go against Gabon.
All right, let's head over from here now. This is done. Let's take a look at the second playoff. And of course, that would have to be Cameroon as they take on the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is quite something here. Now, just before that particular time, let's take a look at the lads, what we'd expect from the Cameroonian team when it comes to their particular lineup. This was their match against Angola. And we saw how they performed at that particular point in time. Well, with Baleba, Anguissa, Mbeumo, this team should be good enough to take down DR Congo.
A very good team, and just like you said, look at the names you mentioned. You should be expecting them to be the ones to qualify automatically from their group.
From their group, right?
Unfortunately, they lost that to a deserving Cabo Verde because they played really, really well. And also, Onana has looked like a man reborn, since they left Manchester United. And Castelletto, fantastic defender. But the issue now is with Brian Mbeumo, because Manchester United and the Cameroon Football Association, they are at loggerheads right now about his release and all of that. That's even talking about AFCON. But he is going to be playing this game because this is very, very, very important as well. He is the man to watch. He is Manchester United's best player so far this season. Talking about Brian Mbeumo, he was signed in from Brentford for that huge fee, and he hasn't, let that show. He's been doing really, really well for them. Jackson Chachua also plays in the Premier League with Wolverhampton. They have the good players. Etaye Young also doing well for Levante in La Liga. I think they have the good players, but then DR Congo also have players of their own, even though they will be missing the likes of Yohan Wissa, who is actually injured, but they have the likes of Aaron Wan-Bissaka.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that, yeah. Let's talk about this man. He has been quite the center of attention when it comes to emerging midfielders. We spoke about how Manchester United wanted to put a beat for him. Baleba doing quite well. Spoken about in terms or in the same breath as Philippe Caicedo, Moses Caicedo, pardon me, is he worth the hype at this particular point in time? Can he hold this Cameroonian team down as they go up against DR Congo?
I think the noise about Baleba has actually died down a bit this season for Brighton, because Brighton are actually performing on the collective, but then he's still a very, very young and exciting midfielder, and he hasn't even made Brighton really miss the loss of Moses Caicedo. He's coming from Lille and he has held his own, but then this question is, how is your performance with your club going to transcend into African football? But for the player himself, fantastic.
All right, let's talk about DR Congo now. Like you mentioned, with Visa, who, of course, since the season started, has not been able to really lace his boots for Newcastle, which I think he will do quite very well. But how much of a miss is that for DR Congo? How do you think they'll cope with this Cameroonian team?
Well, I think it's going to be a big miss for them, but they still have our players, that can stand up. They still have the likes of Bakambu, who is doing well for Betis, and they have the likes of Michel Ange Balikwisha, who plays for Celtic. They have Theo Bongonda. They have good players, also players that have actually come in, from Europe, French-born players. They have Simon Banza, who also plays for them right there. So they have players that can come in and, that can negotiate results for them. Aaron Wan-Bissaka also mentioned, who switched nationalities and is now with them. Atom Asuaku, who plays for Sunderland. They also have good players of their own. So this game, I think, is even going to be tougher than the Super Eagles against the Gabon game. All
right, let's predict. What do we think about the both fixtures? Super Eagles versus Rwanda. What do you think would happen? Cameroon versus DR. Let's start with Super Eagles versus Rwanda.
Super Eagles up against Gabon. Well, the fact that it's a neutral ground, you can't expect anything. And there is the option of a semi-final, and also if it goes to penalties, so be it. So for me, I think it's going to go extra time.
There's VAR. Yeah. And something I want to mention about this particular fixture. There was no VAR in the qualification round, as it were, in the group stage. Yeah. And then we now put up VAR at this particular point in time. Isn't it quite an issue? Shouldn't we navigate everything? Since we didn't have a VAR, let's navigate everything without. I'm not saying, of course, VAR is a needed. We should have it everywhere. But for the fact that we navigated the group phase without VAR, why do we have VAR in the
questions
will
have been answered if there was VAR, in the qualifying phase. I think Nigeria might not even be at the playoffs if there was VAR because of that goal, that Calvin Bassing goal. Also, Nigeria will also still have been favoured because Nigeria against Rwanda, where Victor Osimhen scored a goal that was incorrectly ruled out. So I think all other things like VAR will have answered a lot of questions, and just like you said, I think they should have just leveled everything else. But this time maybe they found their mistakes and let's put the VAR into and it's like a mini tournament, and a mini tournament requires VAR. So let's see how it goes from there.
Okay, and then let's talk about Cameroon DR Congo. Who do you think goes through for that one?
That one too.
The final is going to be 3 days later. I'm sure we'll have time to preview the final after both teams have played. But let's just keep it down at who goes through. Yeah. Cameroon, DR Congo, Nigeria, Gabon. Who goes through? Who plays that final?
Well,
who do you think plays that final?
For me, I think purely with the way they all score goals, I think I will be tilting towards Gabon and DR Congo in the final. I know.
Funny thing is how
I know it's just the way
if I look at it,
purely at the football.
Yes, and that's true. If we look at just the one-off match, that match against Benin, I'll give the Super Eagles.
Of course.
But if I look at the Super Eagles as holistically as a team, and look at how the performance have been all through, it's going to be hard against Gabon. Because it's going to be hard against Gabon.
How will you get 25 points and still finish second? That means they finished to a very, very superior team, an Ivory Coast team that did not even concede a goal. So for me, I think Gabon, they've shown that they can score goals. 22 goals scored, 8 from a particular player who even scored more, almost half of the Super Eagles total goals in the qualifiers. So
all right, and Cameroon, for both of us, we think Cameroon goes through.
I think Cameroon too coming up. No, I think DR Congo goes through.
I'll go for Cameroon.
Looking at what Cameroon did also in their groups, they let in, unnecessary goals that should have, sealed the ticket for them automatically. But then I think the DR Congo will do well.
We'll go through. All right. Let's move away from this one now and head over to the EPL. That's how we're wrapping up the show, and it's quite a big one. Just get there with the matches for us. Yeah, let's take a look at what's going down. So let's take a look. It's match week 11 in the EPL. Of course, just 30 minutes after we wrap up this show, or maybe another 30 minutes after we wrap up this show, Tottenham Hotspur will be up against Manchester United. Ruben Amorim has added weight. I think he's smiling too much here. What do you think happens in this fixture?
Maybe it's time that somebody's going to put the needle in the balloon and just deflate it a bit and just call them home that come. we are playing better. Look at Tottenham Hotspur in the Champions League. They won 4-0 up against I'm trying to get the team. Now they scored 4 Copenhagen, yeah, where we are seeing a Puskas Award contender in Mickey van de Ven. And it's also a turn in Manchester United's flesh as well. We saw what he did
so there's
last
enough,
season.
They're coming in with confidence.
They are coming in with confidence against a team that has rested. Because Manchester United were not in any European competition. So they seem to have rested, but then it doesn't mean if a team is coming to you without confidence, you're even going to their home. I think Tottenham Hotspur will want to, improve and do more on that game against Copenhagen, and they might even just get the win at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against Manchester United.
All right, Everton will be up against Fulham. We saw that little bit of resurgence under David Moyes, but then it seems like topsy-turvy. We don't know what Everton and Fulham, we don't know what each of them is going to come up with. It could go anywhere.
Yeah, and it might be a certain man who is playing for one side and has played for the other side. That's talking about Alex Iwobi. He might be the one to see how this game will pan out. It's going to be a tough game, but I think there should be goals in there. Maybe more than a goal, maybe like a 1.5.
After his first win of the season, that's talking about Nuno Espirito de Santo for West Ham United. He'll be up against Burnley, another chance to get something on the table.
Another chance, but I think this is a game where Scott Parker and but Burnley too, they've not really been too good and too bad, but
one of the best chances for them to get some sort of momentum, I think, for West Ham United.
Of course, we are panning out on that last win, the very important win for them. I think they will go on and get this game done against Burnley too. All
right, now Sunderland will take on Arsenal. Granit Xhaka, 7 years, captain of Arsenal, former captain of Arsenal, will come back to go up against his former boss, Mikel Arteta. We're expecting fireworks in this particular game. How would Arsenal fans... Well, okay, it's at, of course, Sunderland's home. But how do you think he'll be received by the teammates, of course, and the fans? How do you think it's going to go down for his particular match?
Of course, they miss him. They miss him.
They do?
They do.
Wow.
They do. I mean, looking at the struggle of Mikel Merino when he joined initially, they were like, oh...
Do you know, they booed him even while he was still wearing the Arsenal jersey.
No, that's all in the past.
That's what are you saying?
That's all in the past.
How are you sure?
They really missed him because I remember that game, his final game for Arsenal. They were like, no, they shouldn't let him go. There were banners that Xhaka shouldn't leave. But then it is what it is. He has been the driving force for this Sunderland team since he got back. Very good player.
I remember we mentioned something when we started the review of this season, and I said one reason why Sunderland would not relegate is Granit Xhaka.
And it's been showing that he scored a brilliant goal also in their last game. And they have a record at home. They haven't lost at home this season so far. So I think the Stadium of Light. But the question is, this is a team that hasn't conceded in God knows how long now. And the question about Sunderland is, how will he even try to score this team? Defensively astute, fantastic Arsenal side this season. But then they've also shown that they don't really score that much, but they get the job done. So I think it's going to be a tough game. Maybe this might even be the game where Sunderland will come up and score against the Gunners.
All right. I don't think there's quite an issue there when it comes to Chelsea against Wolverhampton Wanderers.
But you don't know the Chelsea that will turn up as well.
We should expect them to. They are going to be at Stamford Bridge if they don't beat Wolverhampton Wanderers.
But there might be a new manager bounce because Vitor Pereira has left Wolves now.
The bounce sometimes is negative.
The bounce can be negative, but they can also be positive. And Chelsea have also shown that Stamford Bridge is not even a fortress this season. So you might see the unexpected. Let's expect the unexpected.
All right, Aston Villa will be up against Bournemouth. What do you think about this particular fixture?
The battle between two good Spanish managers, I think it's going to be tougher. But Villa, they will be riding on their win in the Europa League up against Bournemouth, who can also be like they've also been up and down. You can't expect the Bournemouth that
team that will give you quite an issue.
But I think at the Villa Park, I think Aston Villa will just do enough to get a win.
All right, Brentford will be up against Newcastle.
Yeah, I think Newcastle would win that one. Even though Brentford too can be very, very tough, but I think Newcastle would win that. And if only Yohan Wissa was fit, he's not going to get the best reception going back to Brentford. But he's injured, so he's free for now.
All right, Crystal Palace, of course, Oliver Glasner and
good side.
And against Brighton and Hove Albion, who also can be an issue on their own day.
Yeah, they can be an issue, but then they've also shown that they can lose games that they're expected to win. Look at the game up against Manchester United, and also against Arsenal too in the Cup. I think Crystal Palace will get the win here. It's going to be tough for Crystal Palace to win. Mateta will be looking to bounce back after missing that penalty in the Conference League. Sarr is on fire. He scored 2 goals also in the Conference League. I think they will do enough at Selhurst Park to beat Brighton.
All right, Nottingham Forest, of course, and Leeds United. when you look at this game, it could really go anywhere.
Yeah, it will go anywhere, but I think it's going to go to Elland Road, the Elland Road outfit. I think Leeds will get a win in this time because Nottingham Forest too. I mean, look at them also in the Europa League. Morgan Gibbs-White missing a penalty. Sean Dyche, I think the bounce was only for one game. The ball has now stayed on the ground. It's not bouncing anymore.
It's not bouncing again.
It's not bouncing again.
Not bouncing again.
I think
All right.
Leeds might just.
But this is the big match, of course, when it comes to this particular weekend, and that will be Manchester City up against Liverpool. Talking about this particular fixture, okay, just tap the back there. Okay, no, that's it. That's it there. That's it there.
All right.
That's it there.
Yeah.
That's it there. That's the fixture there that we're going to be talking about. It's a big game. It's a big game for the weekend. It's a big game for the weekend. What are your thoughts on this particular one?
Well, I don't know because Liverpool are looking like will I say reborn? But they seem that they are back. I mean, look at that win against Madrid, a game that they dominated, and Manchester City too. You know, with a poor start, you know, to the season. I think when they just won in 3 games, I think they are beginning to show, you know, title contender quality. It's going to be a tough game at the Etihad. I ended 2-0, you know, last season in favor of the eventual champions Liverpool. But I think this time around,
so this
is a man a lot of people are not talking about.
There's been talk about Alexander Isak. He's already back in training and he will be. Do you think he'll start?
It's a travesty to put him side by side with Haaland. Now, it's a travesty.
They should
be putting Ekitike. It should be Ekitike here because Ekitike has been the man, you know, since he signed in.
But when it comes to reputation, I think that's why.
Yeah, reputation. But I mean, current form is more than reputation. I will be surprised if Isak. I think he's back. If he is back into training with Liverpool, if he starts that game, he's going to. I don't want to know. Even if Liverpool should win that game, I don't like it because Ekitike has been the man. You should improve on his confidence. But I think Erling Haaland,
he's the man that is in form.
He is the man.
They're looking at that form guide as we can see it there. Of course, LFC coming off that win.
How did Liverpool get so much else, Mike?
It happens. He was.
How?
It was the league.
These are winnable games.
It was.
I know Crystal Palace like the boogie team.
So who picks this one? Let's wrap up with that. Who picks this one?
It's going to be tough. Like I said, Liverpool are resurgent now, coming off that game against Real Madrid. But also for Manchester City at the Etihad, Ryan Cherki is a man that also should be looked out for. I think it's going to be different from that game last season that ended 2-0. I think it's going to be tougher than that. I think City
picks this one.
Yeah, but there will be goals, but I think City will do this.
All right, I'll go for Liverpool for this one. Let's see how it goes. Yeah. All right, but that will be a Super Sunday match and all of that. Absolutely. Thank you so very much, Hafiz, for coming on the show.
Always.
And that's what we have on the show for this particular Saturday morning. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.